Since the 14th century, Raby Castle in County Durham has stood proud in the landscape. Home to the mother of 2 kings of England, and the center of a plot to oppose Queen Elizabeth I, this is a castle of drama, power, and intrigue.
Magnificent. Absolutely vast. And to think that this 14th century castle still stands today is astounding. Oh my goodness. And right over there, of course, is the keep, which would have been the heart of the medieval castle. So I cannot wait to get inside and explore more and meet Harry and Kate, Lord and Lady Barnard. I'm so excited. When I married into the British Aristocracy, it was the start of a wonderfully exciting journey. But for an American girl from a small town outside Chicago, that was also a little daunting.
I live with my husband Luke, the Earl of Sandwich, and our family at Mapperton House in Dorset.
Living in a place like this is a joy, but also a challenge. And every day we're aware that we're preserving a very special part of Britain's heritage. Mapperton has opened up an extraordinary new world for me, and I can't wait to share it with you all.
So if you love castles and manors and stately homes as much as I do, please join this American Countess as I journey into the British countryside in search of some of Britain's finest historic houses. Raby Castle has been home to the Vane family for 400 years. But this place traces its roots back to the 11th century. Raby has been both a fortress and a home, with successive generations adding to the style of the interiors. This impressive castle is now under the care of Harry and Kate, Lord and Lady Barnard.
Come in.
Hello. Hello. It was amazing.
Julie.
Hello, hello, hello.
Lovely
So
to
nice
see
to see you. So nice to see you. And wow, welcome.
Welcome to Raby.
This is a welcome. I mean, this is incredible. Okay, I feel like I've just walked through and the exterior is medieval, but I'm walking in here and this is not medieval. Was it once medieval? Give me the history, because this is quite an entrance.
There's a reason for that, because it was medieval. The whole castle, 14th century, and in fact parts of it go back to earlier. There was a manor house here from the 12th century onwards, and this hall is thought to be where it all started.
Okay.
So it would have just been a hall, but then the kind of kitchen area would have expanded that end, and then as they got more sophisticated, the private quarters that end.
Right.
And that's how it sort of developed. But then in the 18th century, so it was a medieval hall, in the 18th century, they realized they couldn't quite get the carriages round the courtyard, so they thought, what do we do? So let's just go through, and that's what happened.
No.
So to do that, they had to raise the roof.
So they raised the roof and created these vaulted ceilings.
Yeah.
But also to make it quite grand, because it's a castle after all. Did they want this sort of grand arrival entrance?
Oh, without a doubt, yes. I mean, you've got, your arrival here, having been in a cold carriage for a long time, bumping along, and arriving here and seeing the castle in front of you and its grandeur.
Yes.
And then you finally arrive in here, you dismount from your carriage with 2 roaring fires. I mean, it must have been an incredible feeling. And then your horse carries on, gallopy out that way.
So the carriage would just sort of deposit people here.
Yeah.
And then go through and sort of park itself someplace else.
Yeah. And you would have there were tapestries to keep you warm by that particular fireplace. So that would have stopped any drafts while people were waiting.
And later on as well, if anyone was going hunting or wanting to go riding,
Right.
they would come in here and they'd be kind of saddled up and everything here and get on their horses here,
Yeah.
and then
The
off
groom
they
would
went.
bring it. Yeah, the groom would bring their horse up here, and I mean, your father, I think, used to get on his horse in here. I've ridden in here.
Have you?
Yeah, I have. I once
how-
came up, and it's quite unnerving as you come through the Neville Gateway because it's very clattery.
Right.
And I thought that the horse would spook, but it was fine. And you know, the fire was roaring, and the horse seemed completely fine.
Yeah.
At that time, the castle was kind of open to the public. There was quite a lot of people milling around in the hall, so they got a bit of a surprise when suddenly Kate appeared
Kate
on a
appears
horse.
on a horse, fantastic, and not wanting the horse to be spooked, of course.
Yeah.
So this has stayed the same since the 18th century, since it was sort of repurposed, if you like. But I have noticed these carriages here, and this is on display, is that right, for the public to come and see this, but also to give the idea of what would have been in this,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
in this entrance hall, yes.
Just to understand Raby, it's the scale at every corner because everything is so big.
Yes.
It's big, but it's not flashy. It's just solid and
Yeah.
big, and I think that's what it's all about here.
Right. And these carriages, are they part of the family or?
Yes.
Right.
They're the coats of arms. The thing about Raby is that there's a full collection of sort of everything, whether it be kettles, whether it be carriages, whether
Right.
it be paintings. The full collection is there. So yes, there's a couple of fire engines, and the coach house was full of coaches,
Right,
as
of
you
course. Yeah.
would expect there to be.
Yeah.
So
It's just, I mean, for me, it's incredibly amusing just to walk in here. It was not what I was expecting to see sort of carriages in a house. I mean, let's be honest. Of
Yeah.
course, it's a castle. It's open to the public, but it's been in your family for, I think, 400 years. Is that right?
yes.
Yeah, since 1626, so yeah.
Right.
That's 400 years,
Yeah,
just about.
400 years.
Gosh, we better start thinking about having a party for the anniversary.
Yes, exactly right. And bringing out these carriages. Now, this one, can I just, because I love coat of arms. Is this your family's coat of arms?
Yes, the three gauntlets are.
Okay.
Those became the Vane family coat of arms because in the Battle of Poitiers, the French King John, who surrendered, was supposed to have surrendered to Sir Henry Vane.
Right.
So that became his coat of arms, and by surrendering, he took off his gauntlet.
Okay.
And then the other side is the Exeters. So this carriage will be when the 9th Lord Barnard married Catherine Sarah Exeter Cecil from Burley
Right,
House.
from Burley
Yeah,
House.
yeah,
Okay, so it's
yeah.
been impaled with her coat of arms
Yes,
and then your coat of
absolutely,
arms.
yeah.
And when was this carriage used then? Because of course you've got the coronet there.
It would have been used in coronations primarily.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so just for incredible. Now, the one thing I do want to ask you both is, of course, we've got to backtrack here because I need to understand, I guess, the history of your family, where it all began, how Raby came into your family and has been in your family for 400 years. So what do I need to what century do we need to go back to?
It depends whether you're talking about my direct family or if you're talking about the history of the castle, because basically it's 2 acts, if you like, with an intermission. That's an easy way of thinking about it. So the first were the Nevilles, who built the castle and were actually there for over 400 years. And then they lost it, and then the Vanes came along in 1626 from Kent. They were in their own right. They were quite wealthy. They had a place called Fairlawn, quite connected with the court.
Okay.
And it's been in the family ever since.
Okay.
Yeah.
And who did they buy it from?
Well, they bought it really from Charles I because, he was sort of needing a bit of money, a bit of cash, actually.
And that's where then your family really put down roots here. It starts with the Vanes in the 17th century.
That's right. I mean, at the time when they bought Raby Estates up here, they still had this place in Kent, and that carried on for kind of another 100 years. So this was like their kind of secondary, I wouldn't call it a holiday home, but you know.
I think it was their hunting estate, wasn't it? They really enjoyed
that kind of thing.
Their hunting.
Yeah, but then the younger son was given the Kent property, and the older one got this one. And, you know, it's carried on through the line.
Through the line. Oh my goodness. Okay, now this is making sense. So because, you know, it's always nice for me to come to these places and, of course, learn about the history and the architecture and the fabric of the building, but also to hear about your family who's been here for 400 years and the family beforehand. But I love it that you described it as 2 acts.
Yeah.
It's very clever.
Yes.
But also even having 2 acts is quite astonishing.
But just remember that in the intermission, if you like,
yes,
there was quite a lot of people trying to get hold of this as well. So it was eventually taken by Vane. But I mean, the church was trying hard to get hold of it. And
so the church was trying to get hold of it.
Yeah.
Charles I had it. That you know, and that was the intermission. And and it's still standing today.
Yeah.
Okay, as I'm walking up these steps, this is just fast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. Can I just ask how many rooms? I know that's a really hard question. Roughly.
I don't know. Some people say 110, but I don't think
it's around 100 to 110, but what is a room? Because some of the walls are 15 or 20 feet
That's
thick,
right.
and then they've hollowed out bits within the walls,
You
which
could
could be a room, it could be a cupboard. What
exactly.
do you call
What's
it?
a room?
Yeah.
And if you're counting this as one room, technically in today's modern world, this would be like 20 different rooms in here if I were to put up some type of divider.
Oh, yes, no, that's right. But when it comes to rooms, you see, I mean, even some of the sort of broom cupboards can be the size of a decent sized bedroom. So
I want to see one of those broom cupboards. This video is sponsored by Babbel.
Questo appartamento è centralissimo e ben collegato.
Questo appartamento è centralissimo e ben collegato.
Ciao tutti. Hi everybody. You have been transported to my favorite place in the entire world, and that is here in northern Tuscany. And io sono seduto al sole in piazza qui e bere un americano. So I'm sitting in the square here drinking my americano. Makes me so happy. And I just want to say a huge thanks to Babbel, who is sponsoring today's video, because Babbel is one of the top language learning apps in the entire world. And the reason that I'm able to speak Italian to you right now and to order my americano all in Italian and pay and ask for directions and talk to the locals is all because of Babbel. Un pezzo parmigiano reggiano media. Babbel has been scientifically proven to help you start to learn a new language in just 3 weeks. So whether you want to learn Italian or maybe it's Spanish or Portuguese, I mean, they have a huge list of languages for you to choose from. Learning Italian has been one of the best things I have honestly ever done in my entire life. When I first came to my little Italian house here in Italy, I spoke niente, nulla, nothing Italian at all, apart from like ciao and arrivederci. Now I'm at a B2 intermediate level, and that is all thanks to Babbel. Their lessons are designed by real language teachers, and they have amazing like podcasts. There are games. It's massively boosted my self-confidence. I don't have any type of intimidation when I order or ask for directions or just, say hello and have a conversation. It is one of the best things I've ever done. Check it out. Link below, QR code 60%. That's a huge discount. One of the best things I've ever done. And comment down below and let me know what language you're interested in learning. And remember, my last note, projects keep you young. Make sure you do a project like this that will keep you young. Ciao.
Raby is a castle of two families. a northern powerhouse under the Neville family until the 16th century, when it passed into the ownership of the crown. And then, in 1626, Sir Henry Vane bought it from King Charles I, and it's remained in the Vane family to this day. At the historic heart of Raby is a room which played a pivotal role in the castle's history, and where each generation has made their mark.
Oh my goodness. So this is obviously a hall. What's the name of this hall?
This is the Baron's Hall.
Okay, Baron's Hall. And is it directly above the entrance hall where we just were?
Absolutely. Originally it was called the High Hall, actually, but it's been called the Baron's Hall for a long time now.
Okay. And this was built roughly the same time as what's below?
14th century, yeah, possibly slightly later in the 14th century than what happened before. And when we had a look at the entrance hall below, where they had to raise the roof,
yes,
which meant they had to raise the floor here. So actually it was 10 foot lower originally than it is now. So it's still a very big space.
Exactly. I mean, look at the ceiling above and how vast it is, and just to think that it was 10 feet lower before. So going back to, I guess, when this was built, 14th century, they would then come into this hall after they arrived down below, come into this hall, and this is where also lots of things happened, presumably. Entertainment.
Dining.
That
would have happened here, yeah.
Okay.
You had the minstrels gallery at the other end. So there would have been dining and entertainment and parties and gatherings, and this place could take quite a few people, so
right.
You needed somewhere to gather.
Yes, exactly. And then, of course, it was transformed into what we see today, and that was the 18th century. And the same thing happened in this hall as well. A transformation happened, obviously, because he had to raise the floor here.
So that happened in the 18th century, but then there were also a lot of changes in the 19th century here, in the 1840s. Obviously, it's basically the medieval structure, but there were a lot of changes. There was a different kind of roof, the hammer beam roof, and that was all renewed in the middle of the 19th century.
Okay.
And there was also an extension. You'd have thought it might have been big enough already, but they put an extension on that end of the hall as well.
Oh my goodness. Okay, wow. So now we're kind of in 19th century when we come up here a little bit more. I mean, obviously medieval roots, but 19th century. But I'm looking around and ancestors?
Yeah,
just a few.
this is the room with sort of family portraits in,
Yeah.
mainly.
Yeah.
No pressure in here at all to get it right.
Have you both had your portraits done? Yeah.
We have.
Okay.
Mine is in this room, but Kate's is elsewhere.
Okay.
But both by the same artist. So.
Okay. All right. Well, I definitely will want to look at that. But I'm also looking at sort of the objects that are around. And tell me a little bit more, maybe some of your favorites.
Everybody loves coming and seeing the mice and birds.
Yes.
So there's 5 birds across the place. And their scale, it's so difficult to see them because, again, this is in a massive room and they are massive birds. And they were 1720, porcelain had only just arrived in Europe, and working with porcelain was terribly difficult. So those are fantastic. I happen to love this marriage chest. It's just wild with its. There's a carriage being drawn by ostriches. There's 2 people here dancing their socks off.
And which Neville, or was this from Neville? No.
This will be a Vane.
I mean, do you find, because it's so vast and there's so many objects and so much history here, I mean, 1,000 years of history,
yes.
You can't possibly take it all on board. You must be constantly uncovering,
We're uncovering things the entire time. And actually, it's not just, it's other people. We've got, whether it's the curator or whether it's the archivist. I mean, there are so many things to uncover, and it's been the most exciting journey so
yes.
far. Now, if I've got this wrong, there's going to be a very loud noise and a lot of clattering, but There's your sword drawer. So that's where you'd keep your sword in here.
Oh my goodness.
I'm afraid there's just rubbish in it.
Yeah,
It probably goes on the full length.
That's very important.
Yes, but
very important.
But who knows what they're for.
So this table was made to keep swords in.
Yeah. Well, that one. I don't think any of the others
Incredible.
go quite so far. No.
Incredible. Yeah, this marriage chest is just...
I think it's absolutely wild. And those two dancing away, they're really rocking thing.
And it's exquisite, that craftsmanship, which I think is a lost craftsmanship. We don't see. That's why we value these pieces so much, because the skill that went into them.
There's a few people still... well, obviously not tortoiseshell, because that's illegal now. But there's still people working with marquetry who are still doing a fantastic job. But it's hard, and it's difficult to make the money out of it as well. You've got to make a living.
Yes, of course.
And labour costs a lot.
Yeah.
So we can wander down.
I want to know a little bit more about that period, kind of the intermission that happened between the Nevilles and the Vanes, because that was quite important, wasn't it? Where the crown had taken it over, the church was trying to get Raby, but something big happened. Is it the Rising of the North?
Rising of the North. So that's when the Nevilles lost the castle and this Raby estate. We've got a picture actually of Charles Neville over there, the 6th Earl of Westmoreland, who was the last sort of Neville at Raby.
Okay, and he was trying to defend Raby or no?
No, he was rising up against Elizabeth.
Okay.
So he decided that he wanted Mary Queen of Scots on the throne, and he was Catholic, and he was determined that that's what he was going to do, and so gathered the knights together here. And the story goes there were 600 knights in this.
700.
Okay, 700 knights.
700 knights
in this room for 3 days. I mean, the mess they must have caused. And at the end of it, I think they probably decided that maybe they all felt rather ill and had feasted too much. But the lady of the house said, no, come on, get on your horses. You go and rise up against Elizabeth. I want my friend Mary, Queen of Scots, on the throne. And off they went, and they failed. And a lot of heads on spikes.
And was so he was Catholic then? Is that correct?
Yes.
So he's Catholic. He's saying, no, I do not want Queen Elizabeth I on the throne. I want Mary Queen of Scots. I'm going to fight for it. We're going to uprise. And they failed, obviously. But was he...
he fled. He fled the country.
He fled. So no execution for him.
No,
he got away.
But he lost everything.
But he lost, including the castle.
Including Raby, And then there was others that ended up on spikes, and others that managed to keep their lands.
Right.
I mean, William Wordsworth, the poet,
Yes.
just wrote about the Rising of the North, and I've just got a little bit of it here.
Is that the Duchess's Handbook?
It is, which was this wonderful book done by the Duchess of Cleveland in 1870, which is our kind of Bible on everything at Raby, because she was she wrote brilliantly, and
fantastic.
it's in a very kind of modern style as well. But going back to Wordsworth, he wrote, Neville sees his followers gathering in from Tees, from Wear and all the little rills, concealed among the forked hills, 700 knights, retainers all of Neville, at their master's call, had sat together in Raby's hall.
So you can then you can really start to see in your mind's eye 700 men, a lot of people here.
We've
ready
always
to go
wondered
fight.
quite how they fitted in, but
Must have been very small. Very small.
Little, very, very little. Right, so then fast forward, of course, then after Neville flees, then you've got Charles I, who's always broke. He says, I'm going to take it, bring it back into the crown. And then your ancestor says, okay, there were Henry
Vanes, so they all seem, almost all of them seem to be called Henry. So
right.
To this day.
To this day, I was about to say.
Sir Henry Vane the Elder was the one that purchased Raby. Then there was his son, Sir Henry Vane the Younger, which with this portrait downstairs of him, and there's a lot of history there. Then the line carried on really through more and more Henrys.
Yes, including
today, as
Yeah.
you said.
And then it went through, so it was Sir Henry Vane, then it became Baron Barnard, and then it became the Earls of Darlington, and then it became the Dukes of Cleveland.
Right.
And then the male line died out and it went back up to Baron Barnard.
So it went back up, okay.
Yeah. And so there were 4 dukes, the first, and then 3 brothers were the second, third and fourth.
Okay.
And whether it be war or just bad breeding.
Right, right. The dukedom came from which monarch?
The first Duke of Cleveland was in the 19th century, became a duke. So quite late in a way.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
But they were Earls of Darlington before that, and they were
Okay.
Lord Barnards before that. So it was really, he was made a duke really for his political services to the Great Reform Bill, which was in 1832, where they extended the vote from a very small group to much wider.
Right.
And he was very much instrumental in doing that, and he was given a dukedom for his services in that regard.
Right. Last question as we exit. Do you hold parties in here yourself? Do you use this occasionally?
We have done.
Okay.
We have done. We have had one dinner in here which was absolutely incredible to use it and brought the castle to life, where we had just over 300 people sitting down in here. And the fact that we could do it was just absolutely extraordinary. And the noise and the sounds were just, the whole castle just sort of reverberated. I almost left another table empty for any of the relations that might have been around to sit down as well.
See, and that's what's so wonderful, that, as custodians of these castles, manors, and stately homes, we're still able to use them because that's what people want. Yes, we're preserving it for future generations, but we're also using it as well to create memories.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And they need to be used. They don't want to be museums.
No,
I think it would be very sad.
Exactly. All right. Well, I'd love to explore more of the medieval part of the castle.
Yeah. Well, let's go and have a look in the kitchen then.
So Julie, here's the medieval kitchen.
This is a huge kitchen. I mean, everything here at Raby is so vast, but to even still have the medieval kitchen sort of functioning as far as people can come and view it, but set out to as it would have been, is that what we think?
Yes.
That this would have been what it somewhat looked like?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't actually changed much. The fabric, obviously, ovens and things have moved on slightly. But, apart from the windows would have just been arrow slits originally.
Right.
But otherwise, it's pretty much as is. There was originally 4 fires around, which have now, been filled in or been used for other things. So there'd have been an awful lot of smoke, a lot of steam.
Right.
And of course, it could all go up there.
Because where am I right now in the castle? Because that, again, is an absolutely enormous vaulted ceiling.
You're in the kitchen tower. There's no other. Because the house is made of so many different towers. This is a standalone tower, so it can go up in smoke without affecting the rest of the castle.
Right. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. And I've noticed that there's steps.
Well,
is it like a fire escape? When there was a fire?
The steps themselves are really, I think, to let a bit more light in. But actually what's really interesting is there's a passage. If you go, there's some steps up to the first layer, and it goes all the way around, and then it carries on. Nowadays, it doesn't carry on, but it would have carried on.
Right.
And, the thought is that it was used by guards and so on, but also as access to other parts of the castle. Also, there's a little alcove up these steps where the cook could take a break. It was a kind of cook's room with a nice fire and an armchair. And,
really?
Yeah. So.
Hierarchy. She needs to have someone comfortable.
Absolutely. So incredible that this was also, again, being used to make sure it was being defended, if you like, with the guards around, but then for a practical purpose, cooking for the
700 men who arrived
Yeah.
for the rising of the
That
north.
would have been a tough job. Yes, that'll have been quite a lot of deer, I'd have thought.
Yeah, exactly. Now, when was the last time this kitchen was properly in use?
It was really used until 1954, so really quite
recent,
quite
really.
recent, really. I do think almost everything that was produced in the kitchen must have been stone cold by the time it got to the dining room.
Yes.
But,
Mild, yeah.
Yeah. Now, this interests me.
Here's some recipe books, that some of the old ones. So you've got Mrs. Raby's recipe here for fruits and syrup. So a pound of fruit of any type. And I mean, that's,
Yeah,
so that's,
I
that
can
would be a sort of
actually
jam.
read this, which is fantastic.
I know, that's
but I
lovely,
see
isn't it?
something, I love this. First, lying the jar over with a bladder.
Yeah, no, not pretty,
Yeah,
really, isn't
no.
it? But you've got to have something to...
You've got to have something.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
I suppose pre-muslin days.
I mean, the handwriting is exquisite. Do we know what century, roughly?
This one is 18th century running into 19th century.
Okay.
And if you look, I mean, you know, when you look at a recipe like that, you know it's been used a lot, don't you? Because the splashing of
Yeah.
stuff on it. I mean, lemon pudding, and how beautifully written is that?
Look, and lilac dye.
Yeah.
Oh my
I
goodness.
mean, it's just fabulous.
And this one they didn't like.
Just don't do that again.
To make nectar, X.
Either she enjoyed making it, or somebody in the house didn't like to eat it.
And do we think it was the lady of the house at the time that was sort of writing these and then handing them?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think this was definitely a family member.
Because you can also tell by the penmanship.
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah,
look at Lord Darlington's housekeeper's receipts.
sponge.
And I love it that they've used the word receipt rather than recipe.
My grandmother used to use the word receipt. She'd always talk about receipts. I always thought she'd spelt it wrong.
Right, no, isn't it? Mrs. Raby's receipt for lemonade.
Yeah.
We could literally spend all day here. And this is just another one. You must have...
Yes, this is another one. And so our index...
Look at receipts. There's the
Yeah.
index. Oh, it's so
This didn't get
beautiful.
finished though. There's quite a lot of empty pages in there, so not much.
You could fill it up.
I could.
You
so-
could. There you go.
Can you imagine the writing there?
Oh yeah, there's lots of pages for you.
Oh yes.
You can start. What's your favorite recipe? Come on, you've got to have one.
Well, my family all say one pot chicken.
That's going to go in there.
It should go in.
It's going to go in there.
Yeah.
One pot chicken is going in there. Next time I come back.
Yeah, one pot chicken, and it'll take me 3 days to write it like that. Yes.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, these are beautiful. I mean, I love archives. Is my real
No,
passion.
They're beautiful. And then this is something a little bit more modern, but so practical that I love it. So if you imagine you've got your big lasagna in your hand, or your shepherd's pie.
Yes.
And then you just do that, and it opens. You don't have to. You're not fiddling around with hands and things. So anyway,
That's
I love
genius.
That. Absolutely fantastic.
Why do we not have a sort of a foot
just-
pedal there?
I don't know. I don't know.
That is
but
genius, because
but
you're right.
please,
'Cause
anybody
you're-
who wants to design one, I'd like to see another one of those.
Okay, all
Foot
right. I
pedal
have a
oven.
feeling when I come back, we're
Yeah.
going to have this whole new design kitchen.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Right.
This is very special
Yep.
to see this and just to learn so much more about the history, this medieval kitchen, and how it has evolved and used until the 1950s. All right, where off to next?
Right. We'll keep going this way.
Okay, great.
This is the servants' hall.
Yeah, would have been a lot of servants.
Would have
This
been
is
a lot of servants.
Big castle.
Yeah.
Originally, it would have actually been the guard room before, so it's a little bit below ground. These were exterior windows, would have just been arrow slits then. And
Right.
it would have had guards, it would have also had horses in at times.
My goodness.
But then it became, the servants' room where they'd have their meals. Actually, really the main meal was at kind of midday.
Okay.
They didn't have a breakfast here. And how it worked was that the housekeeper, the butler, and the lady's maid would have their first course in silence and then leave and finish the meal in the housekeeper's room, whereas the rest of the servants would stay in here.
So there was kind of a hierarchy.
Yeah, it was quite hierarchical, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Really interesting. And then, of course, we must remember, I assume, that when Raby is entertaining and having, all those people to feast in Baron's Hall, you then had those guests would bring their own staff servants as well. So you have them down here as well, presumably?
Yes, and depending on their hierarchy, they may go to the housekeeper's sitting room to finish off their meal and as well. So they would definitely meet sort of on their level.
Right. So there was, that's the one thing I always must, I guess, remind myself that this was a real community here and an opportunity for the staff to then meet other staff servants, however you want to classify them back then, but meet them, and then at least they'd have some type of camaraderie.
Well, this place needs to be a community. The whole, having a building this size and the spin-off from this building, community is about the most important thing you can do. There's no point rattling around it on your own. Apart from anything else, the responsibility is far too great. So lots of people is really important.
Of course.
I think they'd have had a lot of fun here as well, there'd have always been a roaring fire needed, it has to be said. It's not the warmest of warm rooms.
No. The other rooms I was all right with. This one I'm a bit...
and a lot of jollity, I think, later on, probably after the housekeeper had left. But
I'm going to show you this piece of furniture as well. Behind Harry. This I love. So it's on wheels.
Yes. And
you imagine the family would eat at a certain time of day, and so the staff would then be eating, here and there and at different times. So this has, it's got no back to it, and it is absolutely built to pull in front of the fire. So all the food would be kept in there and kept warm. And there's something so simple about it. So this is your original warming cupboard.
That's right.
Yeah.
It is your original warming cupboard. How clever of them. I love that piece.
Yeah. But keeping food warm in a place like this must have been almost impossible.
No, exactly. So whoever decided to invent that, kudos to them.
They did well. But the scale of it, the number of people, that is a lot of people working their way
It's a lot of people. And this, I just love. Food goes on here.
Yeah. Yes.
Pass it up and down.
Pass me the salt.
Yep.
Pass the gravy. Pass everything.
I bet they had a lot of fun with that.
I think a lot of people have seen how fast it can go. Surprised it doesn't go faster stripes down the side.
It's fantastic. Wow, yeah. Even standing from here and just looking beyond, you can really start to imagine, piles of people in here and having a great time.
Yeah, and the noise. The noise level must have been enormous. But you can see them all sitting there, and the hierarchy of when you're allowed a little bit further up, and I imagine a slight amount of flirting and then being told to behave by Cookie or whoever it happened to be, and you can see it. There's something, the pattern on all the furniture. You can see where every bottom has rubbed away the paint. And, it is quite easy just to paint over it, but, just keeping it there and making sure that it survives to tell its story.
Exactly. That is what patina is there for, in order for us to tell the story of, there we go, it's been worn by somebody sitting there, year after year after year. But wow, if these walls could talk. I know that's such a cliche statement, but it's so true. The amount of sort of gossip and, who's interested in who and who's having an affair with who. Do you know what I mean?
You imagine if you live in a village that every day you all got together for a chat. That's what happened here.
And,
so fun.
When anyone was staying, all their servants would come with them, so they'd be catching up on the news and all sorts.
Exactly.
Did you hear what's happening in such and such a house? You can imagine it, can't you?
You can. It's just brilliant.
Oh,
thank you,
lady so-and-so.
I know.
Did you see what she was wearing last night?
Better than Bridgerton.
Oh,
there we go.
Better.
You heard it here first. This servants' hall is better than Bridgerton.
Raby Castle was the childhood home of Cecily Neville, known as the Rose of Raby. Her rooms are accessible up the steepest of staircases.
Well, that was fun, heading up. This is what I love about castles. They just go on and on and all the little secret compartments everywhere. There's a staircase there and then a narrow one there. It's incredible.
Well, I mean, you just
get
have to look
lost.
at this fireplace here to wonder what were they thinking, because it's sort of on the edge of a wall and it doesn't make any sense. But anyway,
It's a bit of a maze, I have to say. But this room has always been associated with Cecily, or Cecily, who was the Rose of Raby. Her father was Ralph Neville, and she was one of 21 children.
Oh my goodness, wow.
And the youngest. She was born here and married Richard, Duke of York, who has also spent some time at Raby, oddly enough, because he was a cousin. And she had 2 kings as amongst her children. That was Richard III and Edward IV. So
kings.
a pretty significant
Wow.
figure.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And quite a battle between those siblings, really, as time went on.
That's exactly
Yeah,
right.
and Duke of Clarence, and and a French queen.
So Cecily, very important then, mother of 2 kings. And was she born here?
Yes, she was born here, absolutely. And it is thought traditionally these were her apartments here.
And then she was born here, so she was kind of raised here, yes? Grew up here?
She was the youngest of 21 here, so there must have been quite a team going on. But I think by the time she was born, her father would have been quite a lot older and maybe had a bit more time to spend time riding with her and riding to the parks, and so she would have had probably much more attention than the older ones.
Yeah, it's always the youngest that seems to get
Yes.
the most attention. But wow, she had quite a climb up to, if these were her suites, let's say they were, she had quite a climb going up and down those stairs.
I think
it's fantastic.
You did, wherever you were in the castle, you had a climb.
Yeah.
So,
But her husband to be was also brought up here, the Duke of York, for the last few years before they married. And I think part of the reason that she was brought up here was probably to keep them apart. Although they married very young,
Yes.
I think there would have been a certain amount of modesty in keeping her.
No, of course, because we have to remember that when you married sort of in that period, 14th, 15th, 16th century, you were, in your teens.
Yeah, early teens.
Yeah, exactly. And do we know if Richard III and Edward IV ever came to Raby?
there's a good chance Richard III would have been, because before he became king, he was very much in the north of England, and very much like the governor of the north, really.
Right.
So, and his main castle was another Neville castle at Middleham, which is actually only about 25 miles south of here.
Okay.
So I'd be very surprised if he didn't. And he also, the local town, Barnard Castle, where there is another Neville castle, he was in charge of that, Richard. So I'm sure he would have come to Raby.
For certain. Yeah. So, but where am I standing right now? Like, what is this?
It's the keep.
This is the keep.
Yeah. So this is going back a long way. So this is one of the earlier bits, and you can hear the clock tugging away in the background. So that's ticking away.
So there's a clock in the keep.
Yeah.
And today, I mean, there's still bits in here. It's quite fun, but it's obviously been used throughout the centuries.
Well, more recently, and by recently, I'm talking actually about 100 years ago on to about 50 years ago, it was used by the local scout group as a meeting point. I can't say there can't be too many 14th century kind of scout huts, if you like.
Yes.
But there's evidence of it with bits and pieces all around. There's some writing on the wall.
I
so
love
on.
this.
So,
We should all live by those rules.
I know. Look at the scout law. You've got to be loyal, trusted, useful, a friend to all, courteous, kind to animals.
Important. Yeah.
Smiles and whistles. A scout smiles and whistles. It's thrifty. A scout is thrifty. Clean in thought, word, and deed. Yeah, I think that those need to be somehow possibly reinstated.
Yes, I think that's right.
And now I'm hearing that clock, and of course, when you said that there was the clock over there, I just thought, oh, there's just a sort of a wind-up clock, but no, it is the clock of Raby.
Yeah, you'll see it outside, and you can see it coming down.
Fantastic.
So in here you see, you open this
Yes.
up. Well, you can see it goes all the way down.
Yes, okay. Oh,
Yeah, you can see a
fantastic.
pendulum in there,
Yeah.
and then the weights
So,
go full way down.
yep, all the way down. This is incredible. So this is really a part of the fabric of the building. You can see it from the exterior.
And you can hear it from miles away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the upkeep of even something like this is, you know, quite, it's another thing that you as custodians have to think about.
Yeah, we got a grant recently to restore the sundial and the clock. Outside, you'll see they're now shiny and new and no paint peeling. But you know, that's gilding, and it's not as if you can just get your poster paints out and give it a quick colour. It's getting it right, and also you have to do it with the planners as well to to change it, choose the colours and make sure that everything's correct.
Yeah, no, because it's a process. It's a real process here, and you have to go through all of the permissions and making sure you're doing it right way because it's listed.
And then you've got to get there.
Yeah,
which is
scaffolding.
Yes.
And so wow, that is amazing to know that this was just recently. Was it restored then in one sense?
No, it was. It's working fine.
It was
just the clock face,
right?
And the sundial face, which is next to it.
Right. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well done, and I'm so glad I was able to see this.
Yeah.
Let's.
Watch your step.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
Thank you. And there's your clock.
That was Cecily's, possibly her suite of rooms that she used, and then there's the clock. Okay. See, I have to get my bearings here because it's so vast. This is brilliant.
So
tell me,
you can see the towers. You can start getting a feel of where the towers are, and also you'll see quite clearly how you've got a suite of rooms on one level.
Yes.
Because you'll look at the windows, and then you'll realise that you know the next tower along, they don't necessarily run together, so you're always up and down stairs.
Yeah. And how many towers are there?
There are 9 towers, and they're all different. There's nothing the same. Everything is organic the way that it developed.
Is it because they just kept building on and they just decided symmetry? No, we're not going to bother with it.
Yes. Well, for instance, there's the kitchen tower. You can see that's the top of the kitchen.
Yes. Right. So now I'm getting my bearings. That's the kitchen tower.
Yes.
I mean, I guess when you come to something that's such a fortress, and it was purpose built originally to defend. Of course, you need to have this height.
Yeah.
So you can see the lay of the land.
Well, you can see on a sunny day, you can see a long way up the dale, and you can see up to Home Farm, which is also fortified, and then beyond Home Farm, if you stand on the roof, you can see another peel tower further up. So you could say the marauding Scots are coming for quite a long way.
Wow. I know, but today I think it's quite moody.
Yes.
You have this very soft cloud and a sweet scent in the air.
Raby will let you know if it wants to be seen or not.
All right, which way? Left? I might have you lead the
I'll
way.
lead on.
Wow.
We come through here.
And you have your flag flying?
We have the flag flying. Yes, I think we might need to put a new one up. It takes some battering, that flag.
Yeah, I mean, we are up north.
Yes.
This is vast. So tell me a little bit about the roof, because I know that, historic houses, roofs, wow, they usually require a lot of maintenance. But this looks pretty good intact.
Well, that's what we thought, but some of it is, some of it isn't. My father renewed a very large area of roof, all lead, obviously, but some of them is just beginning to show its age, and perhaps some of it wasn't done as well as it might have been.
Right.
Techniques have moved on now. So we are going to have to look at some of it again, but it's not like we've got massive buckets with dripping water coming through.
There's a balance to be had between, of course, the thickness of the lead and its weight on the building, and then the thinness of the lead and then it wearing through. So you have to sort of create that balance. And there are not many people working with lead anymore. It's such a specialised job. And a lead roof, when it's done well, looks so beautiful.
You know, it is so beautiful. And of course, the lead roof in particular on listed buildings has to stay as a lead roof. It's
Yes.
not like you can just swap
No.
this out for
No.
slate.
No.
You know, it's
No.
got to be like for like.
Well, it's got, you know, if it was slate, there's nowhere for it to fall.
Well, that is true.
There is actually a route, I've never done it, but I've seen the children do it, and I know you've done it, of across the whole of the roofs, up and down these ladders, over. And I think once you started, you can't turn around and come back again. You have to keep on going
Right.
all the way around.
So there's access to all 9 towers.
Yes,
Yeah, there must be.
There are ladders up every single one.
And is it lead on top of the 9
Yes.
towers as well?
Yeah.
Right.
So there's the other side of the clock with the sundial next to it.
Sundial, fantastic.
Of course, the clock's on top of a window.
So again, for defense purposes, this would have been a perfect spot.
Yeah,
And you can see all around. You can see the invaders, the marauders.
the marauding Scots.
Exactly. Coming towards you. There we are.
Yeah.
Wow.
Looking down the ponds.
Oh, that is brilliant.
It really is
Look
quite
at-
moody
yeah.
today, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really moody. I mean, I think I almost prefer it like this because it gives you a real sense of, you know, kind of what it
Yeah.
would have been.
Yeah.
What it would have been. Anyway, what a treat. This was brilliant just to see. It's always nice to come out on top of the roofs because it gives you also the scale
Yeah.
of it, and you could see almost from up above.
Yeah. No, it is acres and acres of roof.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly right. Acres and acres of roof.
As my visit to Raby Castle continues, the medieval is eclipsed by 18th and 19th century splendor.
Oh my goodness. This is just screaming gilt, gold, bling.
Yeah, it's definitely sort of Buckingham Palace meets
It is.
Walt Disney, isn't it? It's so over the top meets Barbie.
And the more recent past is preserved untouched.
I mean, I feel like I've just walked into literally your grandparents' sitting room and they were just here 5 minutes ago.
Harry's father decided to shut the doors and leave it at is. And with a castle this size, there's no reason to go back and use the same rooms again. You just move on to somewhere else.
Right.
And nobody's bothered since 1964 to move anything.